If you're walking through a house with your client and you suddenly smell something really strange, and you turn to your client and go, I just smell something weird. And they go, I don't smell anything. Or, yeah, I'm okay with that. They just farted. This tip and more on today's Unnamed Real Estate Podcast. Well, hi there. My name is Charles Ray Dawson. I'm the Associate Broker Residential Sales Manager at ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 222, the Triple Deuce. So how are you guys doing today? So the little teaser drop that I just mentioned earlier may or may not happen to me this weekend. And I may or may not didn't recognize it until like a day or two later. I went, wait a minute. Clients, what are you going to do with them? So hope you guys are having a great week. This week's been a lot of fun for me because it was like one of those, I can't believe this week is going so fast. And then all of a sudden it's like, I can't believe it's only Thursday. Like flipped over midstream. So, but life is going on pretty well. We've got some really cool things going on in real estate right now. We see, last week we were talking about how first week of May seems to be the peak historically for listings under contract, which is one of the numbers that we track to see how well the market's going. Cromford Report has come out and talked about stuff like that, and I'm actually seeing that quite a bit. Like Monday and Tuesday, I'm talking to agents, not just my agents, but agents and other brokerages. And it's like we just saw this sudden surge this weekend. Those numbers should be reported in my weekly number poll, but I'm not seeing it. So this is where you have anecdotal evidence of people are the market suddenly feels something. All the agents like, whoa, what the hell's going on? But we don't see it reflected in the data. I got a couple theories about that, right? But hey, first things first. All right, you love them. Okay, let's just do the numbers to get them out of the way. So these are the numbers for May 7th, 2025. Actives this week are 26,224, down 96, all right? Our new listings are at 2,469, up 94, all right? And our contracts are at 2,532, down 28, with 2,056 closing. Coming soon to an MLS near you is 633. And this is one of those things where you sit there and you look at these numbers and it's like, wow, they are all over the place, right? We got a Cromford Report on the supply at 107.7. We got a demand of 81.8 with a Cromford Report number of an even 76. So why is the street feeling different than what the numbers are? This isn't the stock market, all right? We don't have, well, do we? Do we have shadowy people out there manipulating the real estate numbers? I don't feel it. I really don't. So, let's break it down and look at the individual areas. All right. And Chandler is still in that drop. They're down to 123.9, down 11. The biggest loser over the last 4-week period is Tempe, is down into a 94.0, off 13 from 108 where they were 4 weeks ago. So let's go for that. Chandler, Avondale, Fountain Hills, Glendale, and Phoenix just barely, or is still considered a seller's market. But Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, don't care. Gilbert, Mesa, Tempe, Cave Creek, those are your balances, and they're all falling. All right. Peoria is down definitely into buyer's market at Peoria, down 8, all right, but they've been there for about a month now. All right. And then Goodyear, Surprise, Queen Creek, Buckeye, and Maricopa, all rising, but all still in buyer's market. So what can we go on this? Okay. The information from the people I've been talking to, all right, is that they all had done a price drop and they had all crossed one of those magic thresholds. And what I mean by those magic thresholds is, going below 800, all right, going below 600, going below a big round meaty number. And you just suddenly pop in to a continuing search that's been there for a while. All right. If you set your search and you say, I want a house from between $600,000 and $800,000, all right, and I set up that search and you're seeing everything between 6 and 8, and this house has been floating around out there at 810, suddenly decides to drop to 799, you're showing up on my search all of a sudden. All right. So is that just people looking at the demand, suddenly seeing that drop and go, bam, okay, now it's showing up and the houses are showing better? Don't know. I got a house under contract this week, and the agent was practically beating down the door trying to come in and see this property. We weren't ready to list it yet. We were coming soon, right? And I said right there, hey, no showings during coming soon. Hey, can we see the place anyways? Now the client doesn't want you to see the place until it's done. You can go look around. You can go around and look around. Okay, gates open, walk around, get a feel for the lot. All right, you've seen the floor plan, you know what the inside's going to look like. And when they showed up, they just happened to run into the contractor. So they talked to the contractor. They spent 2 hours taking a look at this house and then came back with a lowball offer. All right. It was rejected because we haven't even hit the mark yet, and it's a little bit too early in the game to be panic attacking and taking whatever offer we can get. Even though that old adage of the first offer you get is your best offer was rattling through my brains like consistently. But they came back to us this weekend. Hold on. I did not properly show prep. I did not have my Smoky in an easily accessible position. Sweet nicotine. So no deal, not going to work. Called me up, hey, I'm like, no, we're still not coming down there. Apparently last weekend they went out and they saw that floor plan dolled up. They saw what that house could be, and they realized we were priced right. So they're back again, and we just finally got that whole thing wrapped up last night. So we are under contract. Let's see how the inspections and appraisals and everything go, but hopefully that sucker will be closed by the end of the month. Winning! So what else is going on? Our agents are very busy. I mean, the workers are working, and that's the only way I can describe it. Agents are out there beating the bushes, trying to come up with deals, trying to come up with clients, going out there doing the work to be successful, are doing pretty good. Are my part-timers, my not-so-involved agents, they're just sort of sitting there, right? Let's look at, this one came right in from Inman. Actually, this one right here came in from Cromford Report, all right? All right. They're saying month of May. This was done May 7th, all right, yesterday, all right? We have 2025 is proving to be far more interesting and surprising than 2024, all right? Sellers, the news is mixed, right? Supplies did not grow over the last week, right? Remember, it actually dropped, okay? Let's go back to that real quick. I want to point that out, all right? Our supply actually dropped by 96, all right? It hasn't dropped in quite some time. Little statistical blips, but bam, was last week the peak. I would like to see it as a peak because, I would rather see our supply at 100. I'd like to see her demand at 100. All right. I'd like to see the demand go up. I'd like to see this number go up. Hey, all right. The big rush seems to be over. Okay. And this is a good for people who are currently selling. This means that you're not going to be competing against everybody else, right? But the other side is demand starting to slide. All right. So the people who are buying, who want to buy, are already out there. New demand is not coming in to fill the places of the successful buyers who have gotten a house under contract, right? So, like I said, this is all showing that first week of May peak that I've been warning about, right? So, it's also been, I was reading from the article, pretty low ebb for a couple of years now, but for the first 4 months of 2025 showed occasional sparks of life. We're now seeing the week 18 count of listings under contract fall to a level that is lower than any year since 2000. If you take out 07 and 08 as outliers of when the world was crazy. All right. All right. And this is also, we have a weak annual sales rate. This does not look promising for sellers for the next 2 months. Let's see how that plays out. All right. Because great time to be a buyer. All right. All right, we are expecting to see this Chronicle report number, that's that last number on the side, okay, starting to flatten out instead of falling, and we'll probably be sitting here through the rest of the summertime, right? At the national level, Zillow, NAR, Fannie Mae, those guys are all predicting stability, right? No sudden shocks or anything that come out, and it's always really hard to forecast things out, right? But they're saying a fall in prices is more probable than seeing a rise. Now, we had a very slow year last year, but house prices still went up. But coming out, our current monthly average square foot for all areas and types, all right, is 2.1% lower than when we started off the year, and it's 3.7% lower than a year before. Does this necessarily reflect falling house prices? There's a real argument that it does. 2-3% is not considered a lot, and it could just be people properly pricing their listings when they put it out there. Okay, so we need to take a really good look at that. If we can just stay even here for a little while. The news-wise came out the Fed has decided they're not going to drop the Fed rate. Right? I don't think the market was really expecting a drop in the Fed rate. Their official statement, as translated to me, was with the tariff instability and stuff coming out, that's going to have an impact on GDP. So they're not sure if they want to do that. Strangely enough, if it had actually been a tax, like governments decides to raise taxes, they would have seen that, oh, this is going to slow the economy. We need to juice it up by raising rate or lowering the rates. But in this case, because it's tariffs, and tariffs, although everybody keeps saying a tariff is a tax on the consumer, not to the Fed, right? A tariff is something terribly, horribly different than a tax on the consumer, and that way we can't treat a tariff as a tax when it comes to lowering the Fed rate. And yes, there are a lot of people out there who are getting really, really paranoid about the concept that the Fed just has it in for, the current administration and America in general. Your mileage may vary depending on what your YouTube algorithm decides you need to listen to. So, so that's that. Wraps that up. I think this is going to be pretty much what the rest of this year is going to be rolling out at. So I had this conversation with somebody yesterday. He's like, he doesn't want to buy until he sees 3% interest rates again. I'm like, dude, you're never seeing 3% interest rates in your lifetime. All right. That was an unusual circumstance. All right. That was COVID. You're never seeing COVID rates again. Just, all right. Historical norms. 7% over the last 50 years. Now remember, that's an average. We got to calculate in the 80s, and there's 16-17% interest rates, and I've seen 18 on paperwork from before going back there. And you probably got some boomer out there, I remember when I bought my house here, 20% and I had to donate a kidney. But we got that weird we got two weird historical blips that have traumatized the country and traumatized the consumer base. One, people think that 08 crash is going to happen again. And if they just wait, it'll crash again. They just got to wait. They know it's going to happen. All right. And people like me who understand how the crash happened and explain it to them and say the mechanisms that created that crash no longer exist. They're going, nope, it's going to crash. It's going to crash. It did it before, it can do it again. Yeah, okay, it did it before, it can, once something has been done, it has actual possibility to happen again. The simple logical rule there. All right, but those mechanisms, if we crash, it's going to be for something completely different. Like mushroom clouds appearing over the countryside, or India and Pakistan deciding mushroom clouds growing in mid-air Pakistan, or a China civil war suddenly kicks off because he seems to be running his country into the dirt over there. And sooner or later, that's going to get ugly. These things, black swan events, don't worry about that. All right? Worry about what you can work right now. Work your circles. So if we see rates come down into more normal where they should be in the last 10, 15, 20 years, not going back 50, we will see them in the 6s. right? And with the right lender who knows how to play the game, you can get rates down in the sixes, but you need to make effort to it. Now remember, the same efforts that you can put in taking your rate, today's rate, and bringing it down into a 6, you can take a 6 into a 5. Right? So, and if we start seeing normal 5s, unmassaged 5s, well, you can just stand by, because that's going to kick everything loose. And then you're standing in lines again, trying to get into a house, and you're going into bidding wars. All right? And agents are traumatized from the bidding war years. I'd rather go back to short sales than go back to bidding wars. So, anyways, but who is buying right now? NAR's come out with a new report that I'm starting to review because we're going to be covering it on our sales meeting next Monday. This one right here. Home buyers and sellers generational trends. This report comes out every year. It is fun reading if you like numbers. Okay, let's take a look at this. Buyers' marital status. All right, 62% of people who bought a house were married. 20% were single females. All right, where's the single ladies at? All right. 8% were single males, and then unmarried couples. That's 2 people, and gender is not specific on this thing, but people who are not married, coming in at 6% on this. Does that even add up? I don't think that adds up to 100. Anyways, your mileage may vary, all right? You got 4% floating around out there. Yeah, nobody knows what they did with. So, all right, but we were covering this at my marketing or my mastermind meeting on Thursday, right? Where do you want, if you were looking for first-time home buyers, where do you want to advertise for? Married couples, maybe newly married couples, but first-time home buyers are going to be your singles, right? Where are the single ladies at? Right. This is their homework assignment. Let's see if they come back and they actually have answers for that. All right, in the next hour or two when they start sliming in here. All right, and I can always tell you if you didn't do your homework because you're the one avoiding my eyes. Yeah. Okay, so just interesting. I would be interested to see the reason between single females and single males. All right, is it employment? All right, we know women are graduating college at a higher rate. You know that women at that age bracket are making more than men on average. All right, the matriarchy exists, boys and girls. Fight the power. All right, so that's going to be fun. Maybe guys just, they take longer to mature. All right, single males, they also tend to move more. They're more mobile. They're more likely to leave their social and their family sphere of influence and move across country for a job. All right. So maybe the single female's like, hey, I live in Bugtussle. I'm going to stay here. My family, my mom and dad are here. All my besties are here. I'm staying here. Guys, it's like, I must go. There is horizon that I must see the other side of, and they're off to the Yukon. I don't know. I'm waxing poetic, and that usually means when I'm starting to stall for time because I'm running out of things to say. So, anyways, unmarried couples definitely do not, I wouldn't spend any money on that, but if there's a way you can get in front of the married types, maybe make a good friend with a pastor or anything like that. I don't know. How would you work something like that? If you guys know any of these unmarried couples who are suddenly buying a house, like that's what me and the wife did, throw it in the show notes below. It's like, hey, yeah, my buddy and his boyfriend decided to buy this house together, or, this, that, and the other thing. I'd be really interested to see who those people are. And if anybody knows that mystery 4%, I would like to see it. And no, it's not investors. All right. It might just be as simple as not recorded. Data's not available. This is the 4% data not available crowd. It happens everywhere. So all sorts of things are happening in the world while the world happens. Hey, we got a pope. Don't know who it is yet. Hold on. It always strikes me as odd when I'm like, everybody was reporting on the smoke, but nobody had a name yet. Yeah. I go online and next thing you know, I'm getting Alan Watts quotes thrown at me. This is why social media sucks for when you want actual honest to God news. I swear. By the moon and the stars in the sky, I'll be there. Little bonus for my fan base. Pope Leo, previously known as Father Bob. Okay. We got an American Pope, boys and girls. You heard it there, here fourth or fifth, all right? Unless you pay no attention to the news except my podcast, right? Pope Leo the 14th, new pontiff, 69, leader of the church militant. We march on Jerusalem in the morning. But first, we're going to watch our children and pets around water. We're not going to drive in anything flooded. We're going to work our circles, all right? We're going to keep our eyes on our friends. Hey, just as an aside, all right, you can stop watching now because I'm going to go pure editorial. I received 2 calls last night, both from veterans, all right? One of them was a guy who's like really seriously on the bubble. He blew up my phone all last week, all right? Looking at eviction, looking at this, looking at that, all sorts of hate and discontent going on in his life, all right? And I was really sort of concerned for him. So he called me up to let me know that he had actually reached out to some veteran services, all right, and is now going to be working down at the VA. And maybe he won't be getting evicted. And now all of a sudden his hopey, changey goodness plans of, oh, everything will be wonderful and better later. He had solid, concrete directions and steps that he took, and now he's working his way through it. The second call I had was from another veteran, exactly where he was a week ago. Right? This is why we talk to our friends. If you've got anybody out there you haven't heard from, just give them a buddy check. You know, hey, dude, sup? All right? Let them rant. It's worth it. If you like me, you can play video games while somebody's ranting in your ear. Other than that, I want you guys to have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you guys all later.